St. Paul were to write a letter today, to whom would he address it to, or what would he say? What do you think?
Wow. I think he could literally write to the big eight.
The big eight.
The big eight.
Who's the big eight? Who's the big eight? Do you know who the big eight is, ladies and gentlemen? I don't know.
Well, the G8 summit would be
Oh.
America, Great Britain, China,
Yeah.
Russia, Germany, Brazil. I don't know who the other two
Did you
would
get Russia?
be. Yeah, I did got Russia. India. India would be in there. Maybe South Africa?
Anyway, the big eight.
The big eight. I think he'd write a letter to the big eight, and he would... I think his letter to America would be very, very pointed. Carol from Brookings had the question of, would a pro-choice believer be welcomed in heaven? And I think given where we're at with our current culture of child sacrifice and abortion and transgender and the confusion, I think there would be a definite calling out of America's really elevation of self and worship of self. Going to our modern day Colosseum, back in the day, it was the gladiators and the great Roman cathedral of the Colosseum to be entertained. Now we've got one just about in every town. You got the Bank Center up in Minneapolis where the Vikings play. You've got Texas Stadium. Then you've got the arenas for all the basketball players, and we've got great big arenas for hockey players. And every major city has multiple coliseums now. And that's where we go to be entertained. And I would even go as far as moving to the retail side of it, of how much what we wear is commercialized, and, you know, that famous line, clothes make the man. You know, what you wear makes you. You ever heard that?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you follow it?
Heck no.
You don't dress up on Sunday when you go to church?
I almost said hell no, but I can't say that on the podcast.
That's true. You don't make your boys dress up and wear a certain tie?
We certainly do on Sundays.
Why? If clothes don't make the man.
Clothes do make the man, but I don't live it like day after day after day. But I probably should. You know, Jordan Peterson says every man should dress up every day.
Mm-hmm. And dress for the job you want, not the one you got.
Unless you're a farmer, you don't dress up for that, but you dress rightfully for it.
But why can't you dress up as a farmer?
But so anyway, you'd go back to the G8 thing, huh? The letter to the G8.
I would the big eights. What do you think would be at the top of the concerns that St. Paul would have?
In the 300s, this is going to go somewhere. If it doesn't, then
I wasn't there, but
I'll edit out. I was alive during the 300s.
Reincarnated.
In the 300s, the thing that the church struggled with the most is the Arian heresy. Do you remember the Arian heresy at all?
I don't know Aaron.
The first, Arius was a priest. I think he might have been a bishop. I think he was a bishop. And the church was full of Arians. And Arians are people who did not believe Jesus is God. Jesus is like the Jews would believe, or like the Muslims. He's just a human person who was stupid enough to die for what he believed in on a cross. I mean, you have to be kind of insane, right? I wasn't prepared to talk about this, but didn't C.S. Lewis said Jesus was either a liar, or he was a lunatic, or he's Lord. Those are the three choices. I think that's C.S. Lewis. I'm not sure.
Liar, lunatic, or Lord.
Yeah. So the church had to settle that issue right away. Who is Jesus Christ?
Then the Jews didn't believe Jesus was God.
Correct.
So what's the difference between being Jewish and Aryan?
Nothing. That's the point. And all those Aryans were Christians.
But they didn't believe in Christ.
Christians, no. And there was the majority of the bishops at the time. Clearly a letter should have been written back then. I think... So where am I going with this? St. Paul would write a letter to the bishops. And he would say this: stop embracing the world. And when you think about Catholicism as a whole, right now, Are we moving towards God or are we moving away from God as a church? And if you just purely look at numbers, which numbers, I mean, numbers matter.
Of course, you can't measure, you can't manage it.
We're moving away from God. Dioceses in the United States right now are going through a process of restructuring. Why? Because we have too few priests. Mass attendance is going down. We have embraced the world, and we're trying to, the church is trying to, it has one foot in the world and one foot in the church. That's what's happening right now.
Oh my. Okay. So,
Epiphany.
Connecting a story from a patient that is from Nebraska. Their local parish just got a new priest from
Africa.
No, India. He's gone to seminary. He is now a celibate priest in their parish. And he has been preaching and a pastor for 15, 16 years. He just got moved to this young person's Catholic church in Nebraska out of Omaha. He has chain immigrated 47 family members because he came, the Catholic Church allowed him to come here and preach, so he was given U.S. citizenship, immigration. But now he's here preaching because he's here. He can bring all of his family over from India because he has U.S. citizenship, and they're migrating or immigrating over on his coattails. Because the Catholic diocese in Omaha can't get enough American nationals that want to go to, is it seminary? Is that what you call it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they can't get enough to go to seminary. So they're recruiting from other countries that are more engaged in faith right now.
Like Africa would be a good example of that.
Sure.
But India, this guy's from India.
This guy's from India. And they were saying that the seminary in Omaha is 90%-ish, go quote me, Indian.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they found a fertile field to draw men who are on fire, supposedly. Or is it a convenience thing?
Well, I was talking to my friend from high school, and on the phone I said to him, the problem in Catholicism in general is the Catholic Church has been sacramentalized, which is a good thing. In other words, we know how to receive the sacraments, but we haven't been evangelized. And so we have gotten away from the source, right? We're out on one of these, early in the podcast, we talked about the Catholic Church as this tree, like an oak tree. But we're so far high and above on a branch, way away from its base, we have lost identity, who we are. And the first marker of Catholicism is miracles.
Okay.
Miracles. There should be miracles everywhere. And when he asks,
coming out of the church or coming from the priest, like
both.
Should he be able to go to the hospital, lay on hands, and help people feel better? And
yes.
Okay.
Yes, miracles.
I don't hear much about that.
No, you don't see that much. And the first miracle I saw was in 1990 when a gentleman and I prayed over a gal who had a leg that was 2 inches shorter than the other.
Holy. And
so it grew right in front of us. Now, this is shortly after I had an experience with the Holy Spirit and I knew God was real.
Okay.
So when you see that, her name is Melissa. I'll hold off on her last name just to protect her for whatever reason. But when you see that, what do you think that does to your faith?
It grows it exponentially. That's what Jesus did. Jesus went around and healed people. He healed the leper. He healed the man by the pool. That's what made it real for people at the time. Yeah, miracles. Miracles are the key. It's the first huge pillar that I think people should be experiencing in Catholicism. It's not happening. Why? Because we have a crisis of faith. We have forgotten our core. So when you go back to the 100s, right, 100 AD, in the 200s and 300s, it was filled with priests and people laying hands and healing one another. Yeah. So that is the most important thing. The next is casting out of demons. Exorcism. Exorcism. You talk to most priests or lay people, they have no experience with that. Well, you go to Africa,
they're bewildered that Americans have atheists because they see demonic activity all the time.
But we do too. We've both seen that movie Nefarious. Got to see it.
Oh, you know what? We're going to do a podcast.
We're going to do a podcast on that. The devil doesn't even hide anymore. Like, you go back to last year's Super Bowl show.
That's true.
National television. We just accept it as normal. Yep, that's okay. Just okay.
It's their right.
Yeah, we shouldn't infringe on their rights to be here.
Yeah, we've embraced the enemy.
Yeah, wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
There are subsects of our culture. I've got a patient that just went to the haunted hotel in Denver. I don't know what it is, but she's younger, her dad's older, but they got matching tattoos, and he had the consent for her to get her tattoo. And they got it of this ghost, and then they got a couple of relic markings tattooed on their arms, matching, because it's cool to do. But what was required when they stayed at the hotel is they had to do a seance.
Say that again?
Yeah, when you stay at this hotel, it's required part of attendance is you have to do a seance.
A seance?
Yeah.
What in the world are you talking about? This is real?
This is a real thing. This is a real thing in Denver. And she's like, oh, the creepiest thing that happened was these doors opened and closed, and then someone blew out the candle beside me while I was doing my incantation. And she's like, it's just so cool. I'm like,
you see, we are dancing with the devil right now in America. The greatest country in the world, ladies and gentlemen. We are really the greatest country in the world. We've already talked about this.
Yeah, we have.
In a podcast.
We have.
And I think God is trying to show us how evil this country really is.
There's a lot. But where do you go? Because you have to, like, what would Paul's letter say? Because where two are gathered in my name, there I am. Okay. Where do we go when we've got priests that are feminized? We have pastors that won't lead and say what needs to be said. I've got to say, I really like where I'm at right now. The pastor's got a really strong conviction, and he appears to be not of the world in the scriptures, and is very good about walking through the Bible from Romans to Acts back to Old Testament and pulling all these different concepts and ideas together into a coherent, logical, this fits as a Christian, or wow, that does not fit with Christianity. I mean, whether it's transgenderism or if it's been abortion, he's done an exceptional job of breadcrumbing every sermon. And it's just not one. It's a series of 3, 4, or 5, because the concept takes that much to have a conversation through. And each week, so we have our sermon on Sunday, and then we come back the next Sunday, and at 9:00 for an hour we have adult fellowship, and we talk about the previous week's sermon. Every other Wednesday night we have parent night when our kids go to religious education. There's small subsects of the congregation that get together and meet in wings of the church and classrooms and discuss the questions from the sermon and anything else that has come up with you and where your faith is at. I'm going off in the weeds here, because the question really remains is, where do our listeners go to find that community, that congregation to celebrate? And know, for Catholics, you guys really are tied to your sacraments and to what it says in the Bible to do.
Well, there's nothing wrong with being tied to that as Catholics, but that's all we do. And this is my concern, is that's all we do. You go to Mass on Sunday, and you go home and watch football, and you go to Mass next Sunday again, and that's it. And I don't understand how you can get to heaven by doing that. I don't get it. I mean, maybe you can. I'm not the judge. Thank goodness I'm not the judge. Because we do have a question that we should answer in a couple minutes. Can pro-choice people get into heaven? But I don't understand how. Let's just strictly, let me talk to the Catholics. You go to Mass on Sunday morning, Saturday night, whatever, and that's all you do? That's less than 1% of your week. And you expect that God's going to just embrace you when you die and get into heaven? Now, maybe there's a way through it. I don't know. I'm not him. But I'm just strictly talking naturally. If God was your employer, you wouldn't be working for him. And I know he's not your employer. I know it's different. But if we just take a look at how we do things in America, you'd be fired a long time ago.
Put it in a scale. 168 hours a week is the balance. How much time are you giving to God? 1 hour. Giving a lot to yourself.
And here's the thing. Jesus says, I call you friends if you do what I tell you. So 1% is doing what God tells you? I'm not buying it. And ladies and gentlemen, if this podcast exists for any reason, any other reason, well, the main reason would be this. You cannot get into heaven without a relationship with God. You can't get in. I don't know. There's like Mark Twain, there's no loophole. You have to have some kind of relationship. And if you have zero, go ahead.
No, we just want to create a platform where we can start that dialogue.
Yeah, I'm not mad at you. I mean, I didn't have one for 19 years. I didn't even know you could. There's so many Catholics and non-Catholics that have no idea that you can even have a personal relationship with God. And that's what evangelists are for. And I guess if you want to throw me in that hat, so be it. But, I mean, what else are you going to do? What else is this world for? This is preparation to get into heaven, basic instructions before leaving earth. And one of the tests is, do you know how to love one another? And some of you have brothers that you haven't talked to for 30 years because something that happened on the farm. You can't stand them. Well, do you think you can get into heaven when you can't stand your brother or your sister or your mom or dad for screwing you over? I mean, do you think you can get right in? Or it seems to me, and I'm not talking about purgatory, forget purgatory, that in order for you to get into the paradise, some things are going to have to get worked out here. You cannot get into heaven with this anger, this hatred towards your dad, because you die that way. You don't die and then everything leaves and you're perfect. You stay the same. Anyway, I don't mean to be in a soapbox, but it's like it drives me crazy that Catholics and non-Catholics go and have, like we were talking about the sacraments, 1 hour a week doesn't cut it.
Right. But I think it ties right into our question of, can pro-choice people get into heaven?
You want to tackle that now?
Well, it's up to you. It's a great segue for where we're at, because it ties right into this living in the world, living for the world, building a great big 3,000 square foot home with 4 bedrooms. Each parent can go in their own room, do their own thing, be in their own device, and there's no community. There's not even a community of fellowship in your own home. You're not sitting at the table and having discussions. I just love the fact that my nieces and nephews come over and visit. We got an opportunity to host them last night and support their parents. And one of our things is at the evening supper table is, what are you grateful for today? And, you know, sometimes it's really vanilla and it's all thankful that mom made scones or whatever. But last night was epic because we know my niece and nephew don't get to church as much as we would like them to. And we pray for them because their parents are busy, as you guys all are. You know, you get it. But the conversation of, what are you grateful for? And grateful for a warm house to be in, and grateful that we got to spend time with my cousins today, and everyone around the table. And then we got to my niece and my nephew. I'm like, hey, you guys are sitting at our table. You got to answer this question too. What are you grateful for? And both of them were like, oh, just grateful that we have cool aunts and uncles, and grateful that we could be here and have supper and we got to come and play. And it's like, those conversations I know don't happen at their house because their parents are busy. But even in our home, our sanctuary, God's first place. Like, we just put him there, and it's got to be talked about. And if I as a dad don't lead it, my wife's busy making supper. It's not at the top of her to do things at supper time. So I got to lead. I got to do that.
Yep.
And you've got to do that. Evangelize to your kids.
And sometimes I'm terrible. I mean, it just becomes about Green Bay and Dallas sometimes, you know, that game and I'm picking on my siblings because I had a nice conversation with Jared, who is a Cowboy fan, loyal, but doesn't really care much anymore, how my former love, the Cowboys, got crushed by Green Bay, my team now. Anyway, a little shout out to Green Bay and Jordan Love.
Hey,
sharing
Green
the
Bay's
love.
going to win this year because, Rodgers isn't there.
Could be.
It's all scripted.
So, on its face, can pro-choice people get into heaven? Well, maybe. I'm not the judge. I don't know. I can't sit here and say no. But I will say, I don't know how in the world you're going to get through. I just don't. I mean, let's just role play. Here I am. I'm sitting here on this bike and I die. And I'm pro-choice. And my angel takes me to the doors of heaven, and there's Jesus. And I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me. And when he's looking at me, he's seeing all of me like he does now. And I see all of me. And I go, uh-oh, something's not right here.
We're out of balance.
And and then Jesus says to you something like, so I tell you in the Old Testament, here's life, here's death, choose life. I tell you in the New Testament, anyone who harms these little children, it's better that a noose be put around your neck and be thrown into the river, to the lake, whatever he says. I just don't see getting through having that position, condoning, supporting people who kill babies.
Well, here's how I take it. And I would say, for anyone who's made that choice and is listening, God and Jesus are not without forgiveness.
Amen.
But if you're firmly planted in, I've done no wrong, I've done no evil.
It's my body, it's my choice.
Your body, your choice. God knew you before you were born. He knew all the mistakes you're going to make. He knows all the fallacies. But you have to choose him. If you don't believe that God's perfection begins in connecting that sperm with that egg cell in this infinitesimal matrix and dark cavernous place of uterus to create a human life, you think that was a mistake. Regardless of the choice that got you there, God doesn't make mistakes. He's not imperfect in his design. Do we as humans screw up his design all the time? Yeah. We walked away from the garden. Paradise. Eve ate the apple. Stupid choice. Man listened to her. Ate with her. We are destined to screw up his world. And we're destined to make bad choices and hurt ourselves and hurt those around us. But that doesn't mean God doesn't forgive. But that means you have to choose a new reality or a new belief system.
In this life.
Because you're not going to get to make that choice after you leave.
All the choices, as we know, end in this life. You cannot bank on, well, in the next life, then I can ask God forgiveness. That I wouldn't hold on to that. Because I've heard people say, well, maybe when I'll die, I'll change my mind or I'll make better decisions. You cannot bank on making more decisions because when the body and soul separate, I just don't know how that works where you can begin making other decisions because you're without a body. So there's a separation that happens. I'm not here to tell you how it all works. I don't know, but I don't think you can bank on that. And I will say with 100% certainty, and this is where I think you were going with your statement, if you die unrepentant, unwilling to change your position in serious sin, like I'm pro-choice and God, you're not going to change my mind. You know the answer to that question. You're not getting in. You're not going to get in because he is not a God of pro-choice. He's pro-life.
But that's what the devil wants, he wants death, destruction, and division.
John 10:10, or John 10 for sure. The devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy.
Steal, kill, and
but
destroy.
I came to bring you life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's what's happening with this pro-choice movement.
Well, it goes back to what I said about the previous experience with the father and the daughter in Denver. Steal, kill, destroy.
Yeah.
Every experience this little girl has with her dad around this realm destroys her faith, confidence, and belief in Jesus. because it's of the world. But that's exactly what the devil wants, is this world is matters. This is what's important. This is where we need to be. This is how we win and exceed. You know, it's how many hoops we get in. It's how many Super Bowl rings we can wear. You know, in 100 years, nobody's really going to care if you had a ring.
My goodness. The main conversation today is, will Jerry Jones fire Mike McCarthy as coach of the Dallas Cowboys?
Yes.
That's the main conversation that people are asking. I don't know. Has he already?
I don't know.
We're taping this on Tuesday. This probably comes out Thursday morning. Probably I might send it early, but. And are those the kinds of questions we should really be talking about? Or should we ask questions like, what did Jesus mean when he said this?
Well,
this is how far gone we are as a people.
I want to put an Easter egg in for our next podcast, because a little poke and pun at it was scripted that Green Bay would win and Dallas would lose.
You think it was scripted?
I don't know. I mean,
you said scripted, so you brought it up.
Yeah, I feel like football's entertainment anymore. At this pro level, we've got pro level actors. You hear it across the announcers. Oh, he did a good job acting on that punt return when they got the penalty. The Dallas got for bumping into the Green Bay guy catching the ball.
The punt receiver.
Punt receiver. And he didn't get bumped. He didn't even hit.
Okay, it's funny you're bringing this up.
Okay.
Am I cutting you off? I don't mean
it's
to.
fine. No, go ahead. Jump in.
I didn't think it was scripted until the Dallas quarterback, Dak, looked at CeeDee Lamb. He was on the left. He did either a post route, and he looked right at him, and he threw him the ball, and it was intercepted for a touchdown. And that's when I thought, I think this might be scripted, because there's no way. Now, anybody can make a mistake. Anyone can have a bad day, but there's certain things you don't do when you're a quarterback. And one of them is telecast. Tell people, hey, I'm going to throw it over here. So it makes you wonder if that was scripted. We're in the weeds, but it is entertainment.
This is where I'm going, though, within the weeds, is
Take it somewhere. Good.
You and I had this little off-script conversation before we started today, because I like investing. I like playing in the market. I like to know what's going on in the world. And with Trump having won Iowa last night, the markets are really excited. And this little conversation about Aladdin.
Yeah, I think they pronounced it Aladdin.
Okay.
Keep going.
Yeah. So talking about things being scripted, and a little teaser for the next podcast or a podcast to come of how does artificial intelligence changing and manipulating the data that we are giving the world based on our choices to further be of the world. More to come.
That'd be a great podcast. I think we're out of time.
Are we out of time?
I mean, we have a question that I don't really want to answer.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to talk Trump. Did Trump really lose the 2020? I'm so tired of talking about that, or people talking about, did Trump really lose 2020? No. Although I would say that the Secretary of State Raffensperger for Georgia.
Yes.
He's been taken off of the overseer of the elections for the next election.
Good.
I don't know.
Well, on that high note, for just news and update, Trump won 98 out of 99 counties in Iowa last night.
But he did lose one, didn't he?
To Nikki Haley.
That's the mainstream media. Oh, yeah, but see, he did lose that one. That's how they're going
to... and they said that she's got a good chance of being single-digit second place behind Trump in New Hampshire next week. And so politics is going to heat up this year. I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation and topic. They're already talking about the Democrats, if they're going to let Biden run again, or if there'll be a new candidate. Typically, it would be the vice president.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Pamela Harris. Is it Pamela Harris?
Kamala
Harris. But she's been so absent in any social light. Who knows? So stick around. We'll have some podcasts around about that this year too.
She's down at the border taking video and pictures, and she's not been down at the border.
No,
she's been doing other things. She's not even at the border.
Who's the Speaker of the House now? Johnson?
Michael Johnson?
Is it?
No, he's a runner. He won the Olympics in like '84, didn't he?
I don't know. Whoever the Speaker of the House.
He's a new guy with glasses.
Yep,
the black hair.
Yeah, he took a bunch of Republicans down. Just a majority.
Did he?
Down to the border.
I did not know that.
They got berated because they wouldn't talk to any of the refugees. They wouldn't talk to any of the immigrants. They only came and talked to Border Patrol.
Why'd they get berated?
Because they weren't talking to the victims. This is what mainstream media was giving him a hard time about. And he got out and he was like, these aren't even American citizens. I really don't care. I'm here to talk to the people who are protecting our border, and I need to support them. I'm not here to support the people who are getting here illegally. Like, yeah, that's what we need.
He seems like a no-nonsense guy.
Yeah.
Yet he passed that crazy bill. They gave money to Ukraine again.
Yeah, they did a continuing resolution.
My final question is, what do we do when our Congress people are creating these bills or approving these monies going to countries without any accountability? What can we do as citizens?
Vote for new people?
Well, it goes to the 2020. The question, did Trump really lose 2020? Does voting even matter? I mean, I hate to say it doesn't matter. I'd like to believe that it does matter. But if it's true, I don't know if Trump lost 2020. But we talked about this earlier. There's weird things here about 2020. Does our vote even count?
Well, it counts as a mass sum, as a pile of chips, just like we talked about an hour of time praying with church against 168 hours.
Yeah.
Does one vote count against all this other minutia? Because I elect you to Congress. You win. What do you know about budgets?
Nothing.
Okay, I need you to come vote on this bill. We're going to give Ukraine $71 million in aid. What question do you ask?
Why?
Okay, because there's a war, and Russia's going to take over, and it's going to take over the eastern side of Europe, and they're all going to die.
And I would say, so what?
Well, you have constituents that are from Ukraine here in your state. Your grain exports are going to be injured and hampered by this because one of our largest soy purchasers in the world is China. If Russia gets a hold of this land, Russia now is going to harvest all that soybeans in the Ukraine because Ukraine is pretty much the breadbasket of Europe like it is here. Russia's going to direct market all that grain to China. They're going to bypass the American market. So now your farmers aren't going to have a market for their soybeans.
So then I'd rather just give the money directly to the farmers and not Ukraine. I mean, we could go banter back and forth, and you'd probably end up winning because, okay, there's so many things tied in. You have to give the money to Ukraine.
But that's how they take somebody like, and I can't speak to Dusty Johnson, what he does or doesn't know, but that's where they win is they logic you out of a decision that you can just make out of principle and out of a stand of, no, we have bigger things at home to take care of. I'm going to let the world take care of the world. Because we don't live in this silo anymore. We're a global economy. We get microchips from a country the size of New Hampshire, Taiwan. They produce most of the microchips in the world. Okay, this is just asinine, but that's where we live in.
Well, we need the Holy Spirit to fix a bunch of things, the Catholic Church and the world. So there it is.
Yes.
I mean,
come on down, Jesus.
Come, Holy Spirit. Yeah. Well, anyway, remember, ladies and gentlemen, you are loved. And may God strengthen the bars
of your gates.